On the technologically superior planet of Ziltron, nestled in the vibrant nebular sector of the galaxy, an atmosphere of unrest bubbled beneath a facade of order. Lyra, a young and passionate Ziltronian, stood out among her peers not just for her iridescent teal skin and luminescent silver hair, which shimmered with every emotion, but for her fiery spirit and unyielding desire for justice. Lyra had always been a beacon of dissent against the Ziltronian Council, the ruling body that maintained an iron grip over the planet with stringent laws and severe penalties. Her latest act of defiance, a covert operation to expose the Council's corruption, had been spectacularly successful, yet it came with dire consequences. The Council, in a swift and punitive response, sentenced Lyra to the harshest punishment conceivable. They declared her a societal agitator and sentenced her to servitude on a primitive planet known for its lush greenery and blue waters Earth. This punishment was not just a banishment, but a humiliation meant to strip her of her dignity and influence. Her final moments on Ziltron were a blur of shackles and somber faces. Lyra was transported aboard a sleek, interstellar vessel, the edges of which glowed with the same cold blue light that lined the Council's assembly hall. The journey through the cosmos was a silent one, save for the low hum of the ship's engines and the occasional crackle of distant starbursts. Upon arrival on Earth, she was delivered to a remote Area A sprawling farm in Montana, where the rolling plains met the rugged mountains. The farm was owned by Tom, a solitary human with a gentle demeanor and a life as quiet as the land he cultivated. The Council's emissaries presented him with an archaic document, claiming it bound Lyra to him as his property. Tom, who had no prior warning of this arrangement, was taken aback. The very notion of owning another being clashed violently with his values. But the emissaries were indifferent to his protests. "This is the decree," they stated emotionlessly. "She is your responsibility now. Teach her humility, teach her the consequence of her actions." As the alien ship disappeared into the twilight sky, leaving a trail of shimmering particles, Tom turned to Lyra, his expression a mix of confusion and concern. "You don't have to be my slave," he said, the words awkward in his mouth. "You're free here, as free as I can make you." Lyra, standing in the alien landscape, felt a surge of emotions. Betrayed by her own people, now at the mercy of a stranger, her usual resilience wavered. The Earth's gravity felt heavier than she had anticipated, pressing down on her shoulders with the weight of her new reality. However, as the first night fell and the stars began to twinkle in the foreign sky, a resolve began to build in her. She was far from her home and her people, punished for her courage, yet not defeated. If this Earth was to be her cage, she would not let it constrain her spirit. Together, under the vast Montana sky, Tom and Lyra began navigating their unexpected partnership, each learning about the worlds they came from and the worlds they could build together. As they walked back towards the farmhouse, the seeds of an unlikely alliance were sown, rooted in the fertile ground of new beginnings and mutual respect. The days following Lyra's arrival on Earth were a melange of wonder and bewilderment. Each morning, she awoke to the amber glow of the sunrise spilling over the vast Montana plains, a sight vastly different from the neon skies of Ziltron. The crisp, clean air filled her lungs differently here, heavy and rich with the earthy scents of soil and grass. Adjusting to the simplicity of Earth's nature, devoid of the mechanical buzz and electronic sheen of her home planet, was both a challenge and a reprieve. Tom, ever mindful of Lyra's comfort yet aware of her unfamiliarity with earthly customs, slowly introduced her to his world. He showed her how to feed the chickens, which pecked curiously at her shimmering skin, and how to milk the cows, whose warm, damp breaths fogged up in the cool morning air. Each task was an exercise in patience for Lyra, who found the animals both fascinating and comical with their unassuming dispositions. Their afternoons were spent tending to the vegetable garden, where Tom taught Lyra the names of all the plants. "This is basil," he'd say, handing her a fragrant leaf, "and that's a tomato plant over there." Lyra learned to cherish these moments, the dirt under her nails a tangible reminder of her new life, so grounded and so drastically different from the floating gardens of Ziltron. Lyra's evenings were reserved for sharing stories of her world. Sitting by the fireplace, the flames casting a warm glow against the coolness of the night, she spoke of Ziltron's floating cities and the streams of light that connected them. Tom listened intently, his imagination ignited by tales of advanced technology and cosmic festivals where the stars themselves seemed to dance. In return, Tom shared Earth's histories and myths. Lyra was particularly taken with the stories of human explorers who traversed vast oceans and unknown lands, much like she now navigated her new existence. The parallels between their quests and her own journey of discovery did not escape her, providing a comfort that perhaps she was not so different from humans after all. Through these exchanges, a bond formed between them, built on the foundation of mutual curiosity and respect. They were two beings from vastly different worlds, yet they found common ground in their shared sense of adventure and their willingness to learn from each other. As the weeks turned into months, Lyra began to appreciate Earth's beauty and its rhythms. She found joy in the simplicity of a sunset and peace in the symphony of a storm rolling in over the mountains. Her initial feelings of displacement gradually subsided, replaced by a burgeoning sense of belonging. However, the peace was periodically broken by a lingering thought that nagged at her: her freedom was not truly her own. Though Tom treated her as an equal, the terms of her arrival still bound her. This realization cast a shadow over her brighter days, reminding her of the change she had yet to fully shake off. One clear night, as they gazed up at the expansive starlit sky, Tom noticed the melancholy in Lyra's luminescent eyes. "We'll figure this out," he reassured her, his hand finding hers in the darkness. "You're not alone in this." With that promise hanging in the cool night air, they continued to gaze at the stars, a human and an alien, each far from their own kind, yet together forming a new kind of family on this strange, beautiful world. As the Montana landscape shifted from the lush greens of summer to the crisp golds of autumn, Lyra and Tom found themselves increasingly intertwined in each other's daily lives. The routine that once felt alien to Lyra had become comforting, and the earth no longer seemed like a prison but a home. However, beneath her newfound calm, the fire of her past and the injustices she had fought against on Ziltron still simmered. One chilly evening, as they sat by the crackling fire after a day's work, Lyra decided it was time to reveal more about her past to Tom. She had been cautious about sharing the full extent of her activism against the Ziltronian Council, fearful of how he might view her. But the trust and friendship that had blossomed between them made her feel safe to open up. "Lyra, you've told me about your planet's cities and technology," Tom began, handing her a mug of warm tea, "but you've never really talked about why they sent you here, to me. Why exactly were you punished?" Lyra took a deep breath, her silver hair reflecting the firelight. "I was part of a group that sought to reform Ziltron. Our leaders, the Council, they don't serve the people anymore. They serve their own interests, hoarding technology and knowledge that could help many. We wanted to change that." "And that's why they considered you a threat?" Tom asked, trying to keep his tone neutral. "Yes," she nodded. "We were gaining support. We planned peaceful protests, shared hidden information, all to open the eyes of our people. But before we could enact more change, we were discovered. The Council deemed us criminals, threats to the public order. My punishment was not just for my actions, but to serve as a warning to others who might dare to challenge them." Tom listened intently, his expression turning from curiosity to concern. "So, they sent you here, thinking an Earth farmer would enforce their punishment? They didn't know me very well." Lyra chuckled softly, a sound tinged with sadness. "No, they didn't. And for that, I am grateful. You have shown me more kindness than I could have hoped for." Moved by her story and her resilience, Tom felt a surge of protectiveness. "Lyra, this isn't right. You're here under false pretenses, serving a sentence for seeking justice. Maybe there's something we can do about it." The next day, Tom reached out to an old college friend who had become a lawyer, specializing in international law, though admittedly, interstellar legal issues were uncharted territory. Over the phone, he explained Lyra's situation, emphasizing her unjust treatment and forced servitude. That's quite a situation, his friend had said, audibly intrigued. I'm not sure how much of this falls under Earth's jurisdiction, or any for that matter, but let's give it a shot. Human rights should apply to all sentient beings, right? I'll do some research and get back to you. Encouraged by the possibility of challenging Lyra's servitude legally, Tom and Lyra began to document everything about her situation and her role in the resistance on Ziltron. They gathered evidence of the Council's corruption and tyranny, hoping to build a strong case for her freedom. As autumn deepened into winter, the warmth of their mission fueled their spirits. Lyra, who had once felt isolated by her circumstances, now found strength in their shared purpose. Together, they dared to imagine a future where her chains were broken, not just for her, but for others who might be suffering similar fates across the stars. Winter draped its snowy blanket over the Montana landscape as Tom and Lyra prepared for the legal battle that lay ahead. The farmhouse became a hub of activity, with Tom's lawyer friend, Michael, visiting often, his briefcase stuffed with legal pads, books on international law, and a growing stack of documents pertaining to Lyra's case. Lyra found herself learning legal jargon, understanding the intricacies of Earth's justice system, and how it might be wielded to challenge her servitude. Michael, for his part, was fascinated by the challenge, often saying, "This case could set a precedent for how Earth deals with extraterrestrial matters." "You're not just fighting for your freedom, Lyra, you're fighting for the rights of beings we might not even know yet." The courthouse was a modest building in the nearest town, its wooden floors creaking with history. The day of the hearing, it was packed, with local media having caught wind of the unusual proceedings. "Human man fights for aliens' rights," read one headline, capturing both the curiosity and skepticism of the public. Judge Helen Carter presided over the case. She was known for her fair, albeit strict, approach to law. As the proceedings began, the courtroom was tense with anticipation. Michael presented the case passionately, arguing that Lyra's servitude was not only inhumane but also illegal under Earth's laws, which did not recognize enslavement as a valid punishment, especially imposed by an extraterrestrial authority. The fact that Ms. Lyra was sent here under the guise of a punishment, which effectively strips her of her autonomy, contradicts the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, to which our country is a signatory, Michael stated, his voice steady and convincing. Lyra's treatment as a slave disregards her sentient nature and her capacity for self-determination, which we argue should be protected under Earth's laws. The prosecution, representing the interests of the Ziltronian Council and facilitated through their Earth-based legal proxy, argued that Lyra's punishment was a matter of Ziltronian law, which Earth had no jurisdiction over. Ms. Lyra's activities threatened the stability of Ziltron. Her punishment, while severe by Earth standards, is customary and legal under Ziltronian regulations. As Lyra was called to the stand, she felt a mixture of nerves and resolve. She recounted her activism, her love for her planet, and her hope to return one day not as a criminal but as a reformer. "I fought for justice on Ziltron, and now I seek it here," she said, her voice clear and resonant in the hushed courtroom. Judge Carter listened intently, her expression unreadable. When the final arguments were presented, she adjourned the court to deliberate on a decision that felt monumental not just to those in the courtroom but potentially to the galaxy at large. After what felt like an eternity, Judge Carter returned. The room fell silent as she began to speak. "In reviewing this case, I find myself tasked with bridging two vastly different legal systems and moral frameworks. However, one principle remains clear across all civilized systems: the inherent dignity and rights of sentient beings. Therefore, I rule in favor of Ms. Lyra. She is to be recognized as a free individual under Earth's laws, with all accompanying rights and protections." The courtroom erupted in murmurs and then applause from some corners as the implications of her ruling sank in. Tom and Lyra, tears mingling with smiles, embraced, overwhelmed by relief and the promise of a new beginning. Outside, the snow continued to fall, blanketing the world in white as if offering a clean slate. Their victory was not just a personal triumph, but a beacon of hope for others who might find themselves in Lyra's shoes across the universe. AI spurs. After the groundbreaking verdict, Lyra felt as if a massive weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Her newfound freedom was more than a personal victory, it was a symbol of hope and a testament to the possibility of change, both on Earth and potentially across the stars. In the months following the trial, Lyra and Tom worked tirelessly to leverage their experience into broader advocacy. They began to speak at schools, universities, and conferences, sharing their story and the importance of recognizing and protecting the rights of all sentient beings, regardless of their origin. Lyra's eloquence and first-hand account of her struggles and triumphs resonated deeply with audiences, garnering support for her cause and inspiring a movement that slowly, but surely, began to take shape. Tom transformed part of the farm into a sanctuary and rehabilitation center for other extraterrestrial beings who found themselves on Earth under similar circumstances. With the help of Michael and a growing network of allies, they navigated the complexities of interstellar diplomacy to ensure these beings could either safely return home or choose to start anew on Earth. As spring bloomed across the Montana landscape, Tom proposed to Lyra under the sprawling boughs of their favorite oak tree, where they had spent countless hours dreaming of a future where everyone could be free. The proposal was simple yet profound, mirroring their journey together. Lyra accepted with a joyful heart, and they planned a small wedding, inviting their human and alien friends to celebrate their union. The wedding was a beautiful blend of Earth and Ziltronian traditions. Lyra wore a gown that shimmered with the light of her home planet, reflecting her heritage and the journey that had brought her to this moment. Tom wore a suit with a boutonniere that held a sprig of basil, a nod to one of the first Earth plants Lyra had learned to cultivate. They exchanged vows under the vast sky, promising to honor each other's worlds and work together for the justice and freedom of all beings. Their story, once a curious anomaly, had inspired a broader dialogue about interspecies relationships and the need for a new framework of universal rights. Lyra continued to use her platform to push for reforms on Ziltron, hoping to one day see her world embrace the values she had fought for. As they stood hand in hand, watching the sunset paint the sky with colors that reminded Lyra of Ziltron, they discussed their future plans. They envisioned expanding their sanctuary, advocating for intergalactic human rights, and perhaps, one day, establishing a formal diplomatic link between Earth and Ziltron. Their union, born from unlikely circumstances, had grown into a profound partnership, influencing not just their own lives, but potentially the future of interstellar relations. Together, they looked forward to a future where the universe might be a little smaller, a little kinder, and infinitely more connected. And so, under the stars they had once looked upon as symbols of their separation, Tom and Lyra now saw beacons of hope, guiding them in their shared journey toward a more just and compassionate galaxy.